YouTube. Sorry, my video is dark. My apartment doesn't get that much light. This is going to be my labor and delivery story. This is little Miss Scarlett Grace. She just fell asleep, so hopefully she will stay asleep for this video. So yeah, let me tell you about my labor and delivery. I went in on Friday, October 21st, last Friday, to be induced. I went in at 11:30, and as soon as I got there, I went to triage, and they hooked me up to monitors, put an IV in, and they're like, oh wow, you're having contractions regularly every 5 minutes. And I said, yeah, I've been having these for like the past 3 weeks, but then they go away on their own. So I got to my room at about 12:30, and they wanted to see where my contractions were going to see if they got stronger on their own, and then they wouldn't have to give me PITOCIN. So they waited about 2.5 hours, and by 3 o'clock I was still 3 centimeters and 70% effaced, which is what I was when I walked in, and -2 station. So after that, they started me on PITOCIN, and she's like, oh, you're just going to need a little kiss of it, and you're going to go into labor. So they put me on a really low dose. I think it was like 4 or something. And they had me on the PITOCIN for a while. And when I went in, they're like, oh, if you're getting an epidural, you can have it whenever you want. You only have to be 3 centimeters, so you can get it now if you want. I was really nervous about labor and pain. So I was like, well, let me wait until I feel something. So after they started the PITOCIN, I started feeling contractions. They weren't super painful, mostly pressure still. They started to hurt a little, so at 5 o'clock, after 2 hours, I ordered the epidural. I thought maybe it could take like an hour to get, so I wanted to get it before I was in agony, and it actually only took like 5 minutes. So I got my epidural when my pain level was probably at like a 3 or a 4. It was not even bad. Right away I felt it go to my right leg, but my left leg felt completely normal. And I told them, and they're like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes, we'll lay you on your left side. So they lay me on my left side, and eventually that side starts to like go numb too, and I'm really comfortable. They turned up the PITOCIN a little bit to 8, and then after they did that, it was really scary because I guess my contractions started coming right on top of each other. So the baby's heart rate dropped and all the monitors went off. So people ran in and put me on oxygen and made me turn to my other side, and it's kind of scary. So they turned the PITOCIN back down. Then after that, at 9 p.m., so I was on PITOCIN for 6 hours, they checked me, and I was barely 4 centimeters and like still 70% effaced. So it did basically not much at all. And my whole family was at the hospital thinking with the PITOCIN and me already being 3 centimeters, it was going to be a fast labor, but it wasn't. So they said she'll probably be born in the morning. So I was good all night. Josh and my mom stayed in the hospital with me overnight. And sorry if I keep saying I'm trying to remember everything. At 6 a.m. they came in and checked me, and I was at 4 centimeters still. And by then I had been on the maximum dose of PITOCIN all night long. And it just sucked to knowing that I had been on the PITOCIN from 3 p.m. the day before to 6 a.m. and only went 1 centimeter. So they decided to break my water and put an internal monitor in. Once they did that, I started feeling contractions on my left side again, and they said that I need to just lay on my left side so that the medicine drips to that side and it'll be numb. Well, I was worried because I was like, what about when I'm not laying on my left side, when I'm pushing and everything, is it going to stay numb? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll just numb it now. So stay on your left side until you push, that way you'll have the drug in you for when you're pushing. Yeah, that did not work. So at 6 a.m. they broke my water. At 7:30 they came in and checked me, and I was 9 centimeters. And I was so happy because I was getting so frustrated after being there for so long and not progressing. So I was at 9 centimeters all the way effaced, and they're like, okay, well, we're just going to wait until you feel pressure, like you need to have a bowel movement, and you feel like you're going to push. And I was like, okay, well, will I feel it with the epidural? And they said, yeah. So they left me there, and everyone's like, oh, do you feel like you have to push? I'm like, no, not yet. And it probably went till like 12:30. And then I started to feel a little bit of pressure, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to push. So at 1 o'clock, I did my first push, and I was doing practice pushes with the nurse, and she said I was doing really good. I had Josh holding one of my legs, and my best friend Rachel holding my other leg, and I was on oxygen, and I had the blood pressure cuff on, which drove me insane because I was there. It took her about 24 hours to be born. And they had the blood pressure thing taking my blood pressure every 20 minutes for 24 hours. My arm hurt so bad, and it just did it so tight, and it was going while I was pushing. And one of the nurses was like, oh, this blood pressure reading is high. I wonder why. And I said, maybe because my baby's head is about to pop out. It's a little bit higher than when I was sleeping. So I was getting frustrated, but about 15 minutes into pushing, I started feeling everything. They didn't turn my epidural off, but since I wasn't laying on my left side, that whole side I could feel everything. And it was horrible and excruciating, and I did not want to feel pain this delivery. I was hoping it would be smooth, and it wasn't. After an hour of pushing, I was just dying. And I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't push. She won't come out. Her head had been there the whole time, like almost there, but she just wouldn't come out. And I was getting so frustrated and in so much pain. I mean, obviously, if I didn't have the epidural at all working, I'm sure it would have been a lot more painful. But for me, it was like an 8 or a 9 in pain. And, oh my gosh. And when she was crowning, it was horrible. Like, they call it the ring of fire. And I know what it means because it burns so bad. I pushed for an hour and 49 minutes. The whole last 49 minutes, I was not nice. Josh kept saying, you're almost there, you're almost there. And I'm like, shut up. I kept yelling at him. I would take my oxygen mask off and tell the nurse, this sucks. And she was just like laughing at me. And the scary part happened in the end. Right when her head came out, I felt so much relief. It was so nice to actually have her almost out. They told me to stop pushing so that they could check if the cord was around her neck, which some people say is really hard. For me, it was easy. I had been pushing for so long, I just felt like I couldn't push anymore. That last push that pushed her out, like, if she didn't come out that push, she'd still be in there because that was the last one I had in me. As soon as they're checking for the cord around her neck, all of a sudden the doctor's like, we need doctors in here, we need doctors, someone push the emergency button, push the emergency button. And she's like yelling, and the nurse is running out of the room, and they're telling Josh to push the red button, and he's just staring at all these buttons on the wall because we didn't know which button it was. So I take my oxygen mask off, I'm like, push the damn button! And it was really crazy. Like 12 doctors ran into the room. They're all talking to each other really quickly. They lowered my bed. They lowered me all the way flat. They're like 4 doctors are pushing on my stomach. They pushed Josh and Rachel and my mom out of the way. My mom was there too. I didn't know what was happening. I thought like maybe she wasn't alive. And it was the scariest moment of my life. And I was just so out of it in shock. I didn't know what was happening. And I heard them saying, come on, baby, and pushing on my stomach. And it was the scariest thing ever. So they had to cut me and give me an episiotomy and cut to the front a little bit too to get her out. She had the cord around her neck, which isn't what they were really concerned about. What they were worried about was her shoulder was stuck behind my pelvic bone, which is why I was pushing so long and why she wasn't coming out. Hi, baby. And that's really dangerous. It's called, I can't remember what it's called. I'll put it in the description section. But it happens when you're induced and your labor progresses too quickly. The baby doesn't have time to turn in the end, and they get stuck behind the pelvic bone. So her shoulder was stuck, and her arm was like up by her neck like this. So when she was coming through like this. So there's no way she was going to fit through. So they took her. They're really worried about collarbone fractures or breaks or dislocated shoulders or shoulder breaks when babies are born that way. So they put her on my stomach for a second, and I like touched her, but I didn't know what was happening. And then they took her across the room to a warming bed, and there was like all these doctors around her. And I'm looking, and I'm like, is she alive? Is she alive? And I'm just yelling, is she alive? Because nobody said what was happening. They all just barged in and started going crazy, and they're like, yeah, she's fine, she's fine. So then I thought, well, maybe my blood pressure like skyrocketed, or I'm about to have a seizure, or I'm bleeding out or something. So I said, am I okay? And they're like, yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, then what the hell is going on? Because it was crazy, and I thought that she wasn't alive, and I thought something was wrong, and they're like, no, you guys are both fine. They checked her shoulder. There were doctors coming in over the next 2 days checking her, physical therapist, and she's perfectly fine. She was 8 pounds, 0 ounces, and 20 inches long. So she's my little chunker. And she was 8 days past her due date. Yeah, and she's perfect. And after they washed her off and everything, they gave her to Josh, and he got to hold her for the first time. Then they gave her back to me. And yeah, that's my story. It was very scary and a lot more pain than I wanted, and I definitely don't want to go through that experience again because it was so scary, but it's so worth it. And she is just the perfect baby. And yeah, so this is Scarlett Grace. I think you can see her. She's just sleeping. And we took some pictures of her yesterday. Let me see if you can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but that's one of them. And then this one. And let me see, here's that one. My little stinker. And then this one. I don't even know if you could see any of those, but those are her pictures. She's 8 days old now, and Daddy had to go back to work yesterday, so we're just hanging out at home. But this is my baby. Yeah, and I think she looks like her daddy. But people say she has my cheeks, which I think so, because she has super chunker cheeks. And yeah, thank you for everyone that watches my videos. I'm going to try and do some updates about what's going on with her and me. Probably not every week, maybe every other week, just to keep people updated on what's going on. I love watching all your videos. Thank you so much to everyone that followed me on my pregnancy journey until this little girl got here, and we are very happy and healthy and couldn't ask for anything else. Super blessed, and thank you so much for everyone that followed me through this. But we are going to go, and I'm going to put her down and get some sleep while she's sleeping, because it doesn't happen that much, so you need to get as much sleep as you can. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave a comment or a message. And yeah, everyone else out there, good luck to you with your babies, and hoping for healthy deliveries. Thanks.